What did you experience when you went to the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, and what was the purpose of doing a fast?
Beloved friend, first, the purpose of the fasting was twofold. The body is indeed a communication device. It receives and transmits what you might think of as signals. And we would emphasize here for your benefit that the body receives signals as well as it transmits them from your mind. As you go through your normal day, you are abiding in a certain vibrational field. That vibrational field requires that you, within some boundary, live in such a way that you can effectively communicate and relate within that vibrational field. Therefore, the body learns to adapt to where you are placing it and what you have decided to use the body for. When the soul is desirous of shifting vibrational frequencies so that it might receive new signals, it is very valuable to prepare the body by shifting it out of its normal patterns. For instance, each time that you eat a certain food, and you eat it daily, month and year on end, the body adapts to that vibrational frequency. It learns how to receive the energy of that substance, to conform to that substance, to abide with that substance, and then utilize the energy of that substance. When you shift away from that substance, there is a space that is created. There is a time frame, if you will, in which the body now is no longer receiving the signals that substance brings, and it creates shall we say, a pause. The very intelligence and the cellular structure of the body pauses. And as it pauses, you can begin to send new signals to the cells to be open, to be receptive, to attune themselves to new frequencies which can then be received. Therefore, it is a very common practice amongst spiritual paths that when the soul is desirous of deepening its sense of self-awareness, deepening its connection with God, however you wish to view this, that which is called fasting has always been known to help facilitate such a shift because it puts the body at rest. It takes it out of its normal range of vibrational experience so that it can be open, it can become attuned to new frequencies. So the fasting has that purpose by way of preparation. But secondly, this also affects the nature of the mind itself, the thinking mind that is linked to the body and to the vibrational field of physicality. Through the process of fasting, the mind also slows down. It becomes more open. Spaciousness is created within it. And why is that valuable? Because the soul wants to begin sending new signals down through the levels or depths of mind, through the thinking mind, down into the cells of the body. It's seeking to recreate its perceptions, its structure, that your lower self, your egoic mind, the mind that carries you through the day, has been operating from. It's seeking to change this. So fasting is not just a matter of the body alone, but it affects the thinking mechanism of the brain as well, allowing new electrical signals to pulse through the brain and down through the body. And likewise, it creates a spaciousness so that new frequencies can be received. It is not unlike living in a house in which you have a certain music playing at a certain volume all of the time, and then suddenly you decide that perhaps you'd like to hear the sound of the birds outside the window. So you reach over to the dial, do you not, and you turn the volume of the music down. You change the field in which you are having experience. And then, as the volume decreases, you begin to hear the background that has always been there of the singing birds outside the window. And your attention begins to turn from the vibrational field of the music you've been listening to the vibrational field of the song of the bird. New images come, new thoughts come, new feelings come through the body. So fasting serves that purpose. At a deeper level, view fasting as a deliberate decision that really has nothing to do, levels of meaning, with just food. It's the decision to interrupt patterns that have become habitual. So you fast from sound, you fast from negative thinking, you fast from being busy, you fast from going to bed at the same time every day. You fast from arising at the same time every day, for a day, for 2 days, for a week, for a month, for 40 days and 40 nights. You totally change certain patterns. And just as the effect of releasing the body from habitual use of a certain substance creates a space in which something new can take place, fasting from the simple time frame that you're used to arising in the morning will create a spaciousness in the mind, and you'll become aware of things that you didn't know were going on. You'll receive signals that you hadn't received before. When I first came to this, my beloved brother, in order to begin to recultivate our communication ability, I often came to him and then later suggested to him that he take up the practice of arising at 3 o'clock in the morning. That was not his customary time. And yet by so doing, he fasted from his normal habit, which heightened his sense of awareness and created or cultivated the ability within the brain structure and within the nervous system to become attuned to the rarefied frequencies that are always there, but are often drowned out because you're still asleep. And the rest of the world around you is not yet awakened to fill the vibrational field with all the noise of millions of minds actively running about. So that is the deeper meaning of fasting. It is doing things in a new way, fasting from old habits, which heightens your sense of awareness, your vigilance to what is present. Fasting is something that is extremely valuable and should be done by everyone from time to time. We speak here not just of an occasional fasting of the body, but to begin to look at all of the habits you have, even the ones that are positive. If you go into your meditation room at the same time every day, the body and the mind begins to anticipate what ought to happen through learned experience. So go at a different time. If you're used to certain prayers, use different ones from time to time. If you're used to abiding with certain friends on a regular basis, shift from time to time. If you're used to talking a lot, spend a day in silence. Begin then to look at the habits you have cultivated that are almost continual, so much so that you never think about them. and then set aside a time deliberately to fast from that habit. If one has the habit of reading the Sunday paper, go for a month in which no paper is read, and observe how this creates space for you to begin to not only perceive things differently, but to receive different impulses. You'll find new thoughts will come about how to utilize that time differently. Fasting is an art, and one well worth cultivating within yourself. Now, what did I experience in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights? Fear, cold, heat, boredom, mental busyness, hunger, joy, ecstasy, delight, freedom, out-of-body experiences, clairvoyance, clairaudience, visitation by angels, visitation by creatures that should have struck fear in me. You would call them snakes, spiders. Beloved friend, such a journey puts you in a position where you can no longer be distracted from all of the stuff that is going on in your daily consciousness. It is a time of purification. Purification by having no opportunity to escape from truly observing everything that's going on within the field of one's consciousness. There arose within me thoughts of hating God. There arose thoughts within me of deciding to serve Satan instead of God. There arose thoughts within me of wanting to abandon my roots and become a very wealthy merchant surrounded by what you call the dancing ladies. If you can imagine any thought, positive or negative, rest assured that within that 40-day period, some symbol of that thought also arose within me to be experienced even cellularly in the body. Self-doubt arose. Anger arose. It all arose. The whole field of human consciousness arose within me within those 40 days and 40 nights. So that whole time period was a fast. And that was the purpose of removing myself from all communication with anyone, from all comforts that I had become accustomed to. And there was only me with myself. And by abiding with myself, I learned that I was never alone. The negative things, as you might describe them, tended to come up after about the 5th day and through approximately the 20th day. Then it began to shift as I began to notice that I could disidentify with those things. I didn't have to judge them. I could notice being cold and just accept it. The body's cold, so what? The body is hungry, so what? I am desirous of seeing my friends and dancing and singing, so what? I observed things arise, and finally, it was like they knew they had no place to make a home in my mind, and so they subsided. And just as when you physically fast, finally the body is empty, and the cellular structures of the body can begin to repair and heal at a deeper level, the nervous system can rest deeply. Likewise, my mind began to rest, and a spaciousness was created. And during the 20th to about the 25th day, I could feel a transition occurring as my consciousness began to let go of the world I had known, and everything and everyone became as a distant memory. And more I noticed that a light was being birthed or turned on within me. A spaciousness was being created. And out of that spaciousness, I began to tap into levels of consciousness that I had in fact experienced before, but now I had time to really cultivate being with those frequencies in which I could receive communication from other teachers in non-physical realms. I began to feel the great love of God as I'd never felt it before. It came not just as a thought or an inspiration or a fleeting feeling, but it came to seep down, if you will, and here I speak metaphorically, but a seeping down through my mind and through the cells of the body and through the nervous system of the body. It came to be grounded, if you will, throughout my whole being. The deep peace, the perfect trust, the recognition that I was not alone, that I had everything I ever needed because I was one with God. So there were many states of bliss and of ecstasy, many states of transcending identification with the body and suddenly being transported to other realms and other worlds. Pictures of the rest of my life's path began to emerge as though coming up out of the soil of the busyness of my mind and all of the things, just like you, that I had to do just to take care of daily affairs. None of it was there to disturb me. And the deeper purpose began to reveal itself. And I heard the voice of my Father speak to me on what you would know as about the 37th day. And the voice came clearly from around me and within me, saying unto me, "You are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." And suddenly I realized the truth that is true always. God loves me. I need do nothing. I am as my Father created me to be. And the opinions of the world dissolved out of my field of awareness, my energy field, if you will. And I began to be fully stabilized in what you might call an enlightened state of mind. I no longer identified myself as the son of Joseph. I identified myself as the Son of God. So that is a synopsis of what I experienced during my pilgrimage and my fasting. The 40 days and 40 nights, by the way, was a numerological representation that was very important in the schools of thought in which I was reared. It represented a time of birthing, experience, and dissolution. It's like a cycle, 40 days and 40 nights. To be taken more metaphorically than literally. And when I returned, all things had been made new and different. Jeshua ben Joseph had indeed journeyed to the desert, but the Son of God is who returned. Therefore, beloved friend, occasionally give yourself permission to fast from the habits you have created.
Please comment on Mary and the messages that are being published recently as coming from her.
Indeed, beloved friend, do you have volumes for me to fill? Do you have hours to listen to me speak? For in truth, I could utilize the whole of time to speak with love of the one that was known as my mother, who remains always an intimate part of myself, for we remain, of course, in perfect communication. This one, as a soul, chose to allow, to agree to enter into the drama of my own incarnation into the world, This one was therefore put in a position to bring up within her everything unlike love, to look at the very habits of being a mother and to transcend those habits in order to serve a bigger picture. That incarnation was the one in which she perfected her own awakening, her own commitment to what is far beyond each individual's consciousness. That one lives even as I live, and that one has never ceased to follow the way of the heart. That way which is perfected when the consciousness knows, I live, yet not I, but that which is the creation of my Father, the Christed consciousness, alone lives through me. She is extremely active in what you call your current time frame. She is speaking unto many. The appearances that have been recorded by what you call the grand authority of the church, these appearances are not anyone's imagination, and they will indeed increase. The messages she is giving, we should say those to whom she is seeking to communicate, require that her message be given in such a way that is somewhat different than the way in which I'm formulating the message that I'm giving to you through this channel. And why? Because the wise teacher learns the language of the student, the temperament, the space of consciousness in which they are, and then speaks in terms that can be understood. And so she speaks of earth changes. She speaks of the love of God. She speaks a language to many that you may not prefer, but others do. And yet there is an art and a skill and a purpose. And her entire purpose is the same as mine, to cultivate within anyone who will listen the real lining of their perceptions so that they can heal their sense of separation from God and return to the truth of love and worthiness and power and grace. To awaken, in other words. There are many who claim to channel her who do not. And if you pay attention to the vibration you feel in the books you might read or the tapes you may listen to or what have you, you'll always know her presence, because there will be a softness, there will be a gentleness, there will be a quality of perfect mothering, if you will, in which you feel like you just want to lay your head upon her breast and dissolve away into the bliss of love. Those that are not communicating her but would love you to believe they are, you'll always detect some kind of constriction that comes up, some sense of egoic energy, some sense of fear over the future. You better do this. This is going to happen. There's no way to get around it. Those kinds of statements do not come from her at all. And indeed, as I did then, this one I love deeply and look upon as a radiant example of what consciousness can be.